There are lots of questions. I mean, I'll be post testing for you. Okay, so just a minute. We are about to. All right. Okay, so we can start. Okay, you can start.
We're
Hello
ready.
everyone once again, and we heartily apologize for the technical issues. Herewith, we are again about to start the session. Dr. Christine, are you ready?
I am ready.
Yeah, please proceed.
All right. Well, let's talk about progress evaluations for the children when they come in. What do you look at and how do you evaluate it? Always want to make sure you take a lens history. Kids, strange things happen to kids to their contact lenses and things that they have done. So make sure you take a history from the parents, but also the child themselves. Um, Attempt to document any visual function. So even in a small infant, you want to document if the child is tracking with that one eye, if they have a blink reflex, any visual function that is appropriate for the disease that you're working with. And the parental impressions are important. So make sure you write things into the chart, things like the parents say that the child follows the dog across the room, or the child can pick up cereal off of the dinner plate, things like that. Always document retinoscopy or refraction at every visit. And then document what the lens looks like. I used to draw things out. To be quite honest, I now just take a picture with my phone and I put that documentation into the patient's electronic medical chart. And then it's easy to, because there's so much co-management, it's easy to see what the fit looked like. And then of course I write in an assessment and plan of what that, of what is happening with the eye with that contact lens. Then I have the patient take out the contact lens and I read the base curve and I examine the lens under the microscope at every visit to make sure we don't have any scratches, any chips, any deposits on the lens. Very important to dry the lens off and then hold it up to the light to look through it to make sure that it's not hazy. Many lenses will look clear when they're wet, but when you dry them off, and I'm talking Silsoft lenses or any type of gas permeable material, when you dry it off with a tissue and you look through it, you're going to see that it's hazy, and then you either need to replace it or you need to get the deposits off of that lens. Remember, with a Silsoft lens, once it's hazy, it means the coating is gone and you have to throw it away. It does not mean that it's dirty. It means that the coating is gone, versus a gas permeable material can get deposits on it that can be removed. You always ask if there's redness, secretion, visual blurring, or pain, and then document that in the chart. Again, I'm a huge fan of taking photos and documenting that. Troubleshooting now. Okay, so the lens is popping out. The lens is the gas permeable lens is either too steep, the eye has gotten turned in and it's literally pushing the lens out. There's increased pressure, or the center thickness, the edge thickness, there's a problem with the edge of the lens, or there's excessive toricity on the lens. So here's an example of this infant. He was a preemie, a very small micro preemie baby. He has retinopathy of prematurity, has a high myope in the right eye and an aphakia in the left eye. And after 1 year, the lens started popping out of that left eye. So here he is at 1 year, and you're going to notice how steep that fit is. So this is about a 1 diopter bubble that you have there, about 1 diopter steep. So you want to go ahead and make that change for the baby. The lens is too steep, it will pop out. In children, steep lenses pop out, Flat lenses slide off. So a flat lens is going to slide off into the fornix. A steep lens is going to pop out of the eye. Here's an example of a 2-year-old female. She's aphakic in both eyes. She is deaf. She has cochlear implants, and she has this significant esotropia. And her lenses started popping out. Now, what's interesting in this case is you need to ask the parents if they are patching, right? Does the lens pop out when the eye is patched, when the contralateral eye is patched? If the answer is no, then it's typically because the eye is turned in, okay? And that is just pushing it off the eye. Here's a 7-month-old. He's aphakic in the right eye, and he's wearing gas perm lenses, and the lens is popping out. He doesn't have any esotropia, and his alignment looks pretty good, but his pressure was up. So even before if you don't see any fit change, and yet the parents are telling you that the lens is popping out, you should highly consider that it is an intraocular pressure problem. In this little 8-month-old perm wearer, her old lens worked well. They had absolutely no problems with it, ordered a new lens, and that lens is popping out. But they put the old lens in, it's perfectly fine. So you should automatically think there that there's something wrong with the lens. And it's typically an edge issue with the lens or a manufacturing issue. So all corneal gas permeable lenses, you want to make sure that you get the center thickness down to or below 0.7 millimeters thick. You can adjust, even with a very high powered lens, you can adjust that center thickness by adjusting your optic zones and the asphericity on the lens. You want to make sure that your edge thickness is less than 0.2 millimeters. And then you want to make sure that you design a lens that has a flange on it. So in this child's case, the old lens had this flange on it. The new lens had a blunt edge so that the edge of the contact lens was thick. And when those tight little baby eyelids hit the edge of that contact lens, it flicks the lens out of the eye. In this other case, though, here's the same power, the same lens was ordered again. The old lens had a flange on it, and the new lens was sent as a single cut lens. What happened in this case is the parent's insurance changed, and therefore the lab that made the contact lens changed, because I was obligated to go through a different lab. And even though I had specified all the parameters, they made the lens as a single cut, not as a flange lens. And you can notice the difference in thickness between the lens with the flange and the single cut lens. So something, you got to look at these other parameters that you don't necessarily measure. Okay. If there's a loss of fixation, all of a sudden the parents say, I don't think my child is tracking, or when I put the patch on their eye, they are very, very unhappy. There can be a dense amblyopia that is involved, but if it's a sudden change, you don't chalk it up to being amblyopic. A couple of things you should rule out first. One, are the contact lenses in the wrong eyes? This happens frequently. I had a family where all 3 children were bilateral aphakics, and I had to make each contact lens a different color because they kept coming in all mixed up and in the wrong eyes. And it would take me forever to sort through that family. You want to make sure there's not old contact lenses, right? So sometimes people get their contact lenses, they get a new pair, they put a pair in a drawer, and then if they lose one, they go back and they use that old contact lens. Well, sometimes those powers are pretty far off, and then they forget that they've done that old contact lens, and you should always sort through it. That's why gas perms are so helpful, because you can read the power. But don't ever forget that you might be having some type of acute pathology or some type of change in the ocular status of the patient. It could be something like a retinal detachment, or in the case of this child here in this photo, a retropupillary membrane, where the pupil was literally zipped shut and the child couldn't see out of that eye anymore. In this case here, we have a 1-year-old aphakic male who stopped fixating when patched. The mom said he was fine last week, and he suddenly stopped fixating. The referring doctor came over to me and he said, hey, you overplus this child by 9 diopters. And I said, or the retina is 9 diopters closer to the front of the eye. And this child had had a complete retinal detachment in that eye, needed acute surgery. So this is the highest mountain in my country, in the United States, or one of the highest. This is Mount Hood there. This is my oldest son, and this is my youngest son. And so I am ready to take questions if anybody has any. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Christine, for such a wonderful session.
Do we have any questions?
Now we are to begin
Yes,
with
thank
our
you so much, Doctor, for yes. Thank you so much, Doctor, for such a wonderful presentation. I'm taking some of questions from the session. Let me see. Okay, we got it. Now I'd like to go with the first question. So, how to manage the pediatric with affective contact lens? I mean, he just dropped the management of pediatric contact lens with contact lens. So, he might be some your experience regarding the management of pediatric aphakia with contact lens.
So pediatric aphakia is probably the easiest of everything to manage with a contact lens. And so, as I mentioned, I prefer to fit gas permeable lenses because they're by far less expensive and they're very reproducible and very easy to handle by the patients. So I will measure the diameter of the iris and design a lens that's about 1 millimeter smaller than that. I will put contact lenses on the eye until I get one that aligns approximately right, and then do retinoscopy through that. I have designed a pediatric fitting set called the Pediasite fitting set, Pediasite, Pediasite. I don't have any financial interest in it, but it is available through Advanced Vision Technologies. And basically, you just put a lens on so you get one that matches, do retinoscopy through it, and just dispense the lens. I have the parents put it on and off every day, and just monitor the patient. Kids do very well. Aphakia is by far the easiest thing to manage. You just have to make sure they don't develop any other pathology like glaucoma.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor. So let's move to that. Great. Okay, children with Johnson syndrome without cutting them.
What was that?
Okay, Doctor, let me see it. Let me check it. How exactly do you recommend we manage the corneal symmetry with Sjogren syndrome without cutting them?
So the goal is the goal protection, or is the goal vision, or comfort? You know, you really have to establish the goal with that. By far the easiest way to do it is to get some type of 3D image of the eye. So even if you don't have access to that, you probably are going to have to put on a soft contact lens to go up and over it. But if you can have access to some type of 3D imagery, let me find the picture here. You can also take an impression of the eye, like I have done here, where if you get an impression on the eye, you can scan that into 3D space, and then we can create a 3D contact lens for you. So it's not as, honestly, taking impressions on babies is pretty easy. If they're really little, I don't have to sedate them. When they're 2 or 3 or so, I usually do sedate them. 4 or 5s, I don't need to again. But taking an impression, then you have their eyeball that you can work with in virtual space. So any of the symblephrons or any of that, you can work around in 3D space. You can't create a 3D contact lens like that unless you have some type of ocular surface data. So if you have a scan of the eye, Oculus, Eaglet will do 3D scans of the eye, an impression of the eye, something like that. Or you have to do a soft lens.
Okay. Okay, can you please read the question that just dropped by the Dr. EDI? So can you please read out this question? Okay. So let me check it.
Yeah,
So doctor, okay. It will be helpful if you continue because I'm using the another gadget. The last question.
Thank you so much for your question, Dr. Ed. We have a question by her, and the question goes as, do you recommend we use a glass rod to the symplepharon release in Stephen-Johnson syndrome in a resource-limited setting?
Yeah, I mean, that's, if you're going to release the symplepharon, you better put some type of a symplepharon ring or a really large scleral lens in place so that the symplepharon doesn't reform. Typically speaking, you release the symplepharons, you're going to incite some type of inflammation, and it's just going to stick right back down together. I mean, I'm talking like within hours or a couple of days, it'll stick back together. So if you're going to release the symplepharon, you better have what you are going to do to manage that after, either amniotic membrane, put a scleral lens in, a symplepharon ring, something like that.
Okay, thank you so much, doctor. Now we are moving to the next question. Okay. This is the question. Doctor, can you please share your experience of fitting of contact lens on alternative screen in pediatric?
Say that again. On what?
Alternative screened, like exotropia, alternative exotropia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, you want to correct the full amount with some contact lenses now. We can put some of the prism in the contact lens itself. So with like some of this impression technology here, with iPrint, we can put prism in any direction that we want to. Typically what I do is correct up the refractive error full amount that I can, and then put the prism in the glasses over the top, just because the glasses offer protection to the ocular surface. Sometimes you have to have, we don't, in my practice, we don't typically do strabismus surgery until the child is a little bit older, maybe 3 or 4 years old. If we possibly can. So the only time I would refer younger is if I can't keep the contact lens in the eye. But when they're really little, we patch so that each eye gets the full amount of information, and then we do surgery to try to straighten them up, and then prism if we need to from that point. It's hard to develop binocular vision in some of these kids, especially unilateral cataracts.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. So can you please continue with the second session? Yes, we had done with first session.
Yeah, we again have another question by Dr. E.D. She's asking for, we generally stock the contact lens for resource limited settings. Do you recommend we generally stock GP lenses?
Say that again. What about what GP lenses?
She haven't mentioned that, but she have only mentioned that, do you recommend we generally stock GP lenses?
I think I'm missing part of the end of your sentence there. Drop. What did you say? Drop GP lenses? I missed.
Sorry. Okay, I will post the question for you in the chat
Okay,
box.
That's what I'm looking for here. Okay.
it's a rigid RGB contact lens, ma'am.
Amiable.
Ma'am, it's a RGB contact lens. Can you hear me?
Yes. I have
Like
the chat
she's
box.
asking for, may I clear the question, ma'am? Like
Yes.
for the resources limited setting, is we have a stock of contact, we didn't have any other stock of contact lens. Do you recommend we generally for the RGB contact lens?
Yeah, if you only can have one, is that the question? I would do gas perm lenses. You can do almost everything that you need with them. Refractively. Yeah.
Okay.
Scleral lenses are much harder to fit. I mean, that's a whole new level of fitting when it comes to pediatric cases. I limit my scleral lens wear to exposure cases, kids that is their only option. I would probably say 80% of what I do is with GP lenses. And if somebody's interested, they can email me and I can send them the parameters for the lenses that I would recommend that they get made for a little fitting set.
Okay, that's nice. Okay, so I guess we have answered the most of the questions. Let's take ones.
Yeah, I have my fitting set. You can really do very, very well with a 10 lens fitting set for these kids. It's a complete luxury if you have a 20 lens fitting set, but you don't really need much more than that.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Okay.
Christine, for your answer.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do with a few lenses and a pen light when it comes to children.
Okay, hopefully we have answered almost all the queries till now.
People can email me at any time or message me on Facebook. I am frequently up and talking to people in the middle of my night or when I get up in the morning from other countries, and we're chatting about kids and fits and stuff. And so I love it. You feel free to get a hold of me.
Herewith, I announce the closure of today's discussion session. I would again like to express my immense gratitude towards Dr. Christine for giving us presentation on such a difficult time, and we heartily wish you and your entire team may get out of this pandemic soon.
Same here. Thank you.
It's our pleasure, Doctor. Before wrap up, I request you to share your few words to our program.
I am impressed with everything that you've put together here, and I'm really looking forward to future relationships and being able to share knowledge. I love that we're so connected these days, and I really sincerely appreciate that you've invited me into your group and into your homes. So thank you very much.
It's our pleasure to have you with us. Herewith, I announce the closure of today's session, hoping to see you all again tomorrow. Thank you all. Stay safe, stay connected. Thank you.